every budget. Visit Macy's.com.
We are now live on Facebook Live. Hello, Facebook. Hello, Instagram. Hello, YouTube. This is Adrian Hines,
on News
the
Radio
best
570
bankruptcy lawyer, not just in the state of Ohio,
And from News Radio
but in the entire
570
United
WKBN,
States.
it's time now for our
If you
legal
need a
show,
consumer
gang.
bankruptcy
It's
lawyer,
507,
Chapter 7,
and
Chapter
we'll have
11,
free legal
right?
advice between now
Chapter
and 6
7
o'clock.
and 13.
What we've done
She's the
for
person to
well
go to.
over
I'm
30
referring all my
years.
bankruptcy clients
So
there.
if you have any legal
She's
questions,
in the northern half of
we take on
Ohio.
all comers.
She lives in Port Clinton.
Child support,
I have
divorce, DUI,
an
custody,
affinity
estates,
for
evictions, you
Port
name it,
Clinton,
we deal with it.
Sandusky. Those are the best places on
Simply
earth.
pick up the
That's
phone
where
and
he
give
keeps
us a
his boat.
call.
That's
We
why
have
he
three
likes
lines
to
in
go.
Youngstown.
That is why I like my boat.
If you're watching on Instagram or
330-729-9977.
YouTube, make sure you go follow me on at the Ladylike Lawyer on
At the
TikTok.
Ladylike Lawyer.
At the Ladylike Lawyer.
She has about 80,000
News
followers
Radio
on
570
TikTok.
WKBN. If you
Not
have
too
any
bad,
legal
right?
questions, 330
That's pretty good.
9977. Child support, divorce, DUI, custody, estates, evictions.
All right, here we go. Here's Ron.
Medical malpractice, dog
Can you
bites,
turn on my
name
mic,
it.
my
You got a
earphones just a
legal
little bit?
issue?
Mine too.
The goal of our program is to try to point you in the right direction. Simply point you in the right direction.
Good.
Give you free legal advice. We don't send you a bill for it. Try to answer your question, or perhaps maybe you do need a lawyer if it's too complex. That's what we try to do here, and we do it between now and 6 o'clock. So comments or questions are always what we're looking for. That's why I say in the beginning of the program, I give you the updates. By the end of the program, we always end up ending the program without answering all the questions. So if you have a legal question, pick
Now's
up
the
the phone and
time.
call us right now. I have three lines
Pick
in
up the
Youngstown
phone,
open,
call us now.
330-729-9977. Three lines in Youngstown open for any legal questions, 330-729-9977. Legal program is brought to you by Beatrice Cobb. Now let's go to the law firm and check in with the one and only attorney David Beatrice. Hello, David.
Ron, how are you? I'm here. I have a special guest with me. Her name's
Oh, did you bring that Supreme Court judge back? Great.
No.
I'm glad to have it.
No.
I can hardly wait. You know, Dave, that Supreme Court judge was a great guest. I'm glad he's back, and you brought a special guest.
He's
I
not.
couldn't be happier.
He's
Dave.
not.
The
No,
Supreme
no,
Court
it's
judge-
not.
Wait,
No, it's not a
you
Supreme
have a
Court.
special guest. It must be a Supreme Court
It
judge.
is not.
The Ohio Supreme. do you have
No,
someone
it
else
is
from the
not.
Ohio Supreme
It
Court?
is not Justice Michael Donnelly. I'm terribly sorry. We don't have him today. But someone
I
just
thought you said we had a special guest.
We did. Her name's Adrian Hines. She's a bankruptcy. It's all she does is bankruptcy in Port Clinton, but all of Northern Ohio. And Ron, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to be shocked at some of the things she's about to tell you what corporations and businesses get away with consumers. It is shocking. So you can follow her on TikTok. She's at Ladylike Lawyer. She has a huge TikTok following. Not so good on Instagram, but we're working on it. And did you know, Ron, I don't know whether you knew this or not, that companies can charge you 500% interest, and it's legal now.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that?
All right. I'm just trying to get my composure together because I was thinking a Supreme Court judge.
No, he's going to come back. I promise you.
I mean, you know what I mean? I just, so you're telling me you found a woman lawyer that specializes in bankruptcy.
Well, we can't say specializes.
Port Clinton.
All of Northern Ohio. So everything from Mansfield up, she could do your bankruptcy. She's very good. And she has a very big network of bankruptcy lawyers she could go to. So if anyone has bankruptcy questions, tonight's the night to do it. Frank Cassis is waiting. He's in a murder trial. He's waiting on a verdict. Jimmy flew down with Brian to Florida, so he left me. Mark had to go to the hospital, so it's just me and Adrian. That's it. That's all you got tonight, Ron. And
all right, now tell me how you found Adrian. All right, so
Adrian and I go back years. We just go back years, just from different things. And I started following her on TikTok, and I found out a lot of things that I didn't know were really a thing. Like for instance, companies can charge you 500% interest, right, Adrian? I mean, I didn't know that.
That is correct.
And a lot of people don't know that with a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You know, it's you get a better credit rating after bankruptcy, right? That's something else I learned from you.
Yep.
Like your credit rating will go up after you file bankruptcy as before bankruptcy. And Chapter 13 is when a person wants to reorganize their debt. And so it's
All
a
right,
really
let me ask her a question.
Go ahead,
It's,
Ron.
You know, you're going on. First of all, make sure her microphone is nice and close. I need to hear her nice and loud. It's
okay.
I want to make sure her mic is good.
Can you
Adrian,
hear
first
her?
of all, Adrian, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Okay, that's all that matters. Now, Adrian, here's what I want to ask you right off the bat as a bankruptcy lawyer.
Yes.
Are you sitting down? It's going to be a tough question, okay?
She's
All right,
sitting down.
I'm sitting down now.
All right. You know, when somebody declares bankruptcy, there's always somebody on the other end that's owed the money that gets screwed, right? I mean, if I don't care if it's an individual or a company. Let's say you owe me $3,000 and you declare bankruptcy. Well, you're off the hook, but I don't get my $3,000.
Okay, so
that's the part that bothers me about bankruptcy.
I sure hear you. So you're bothered by the concept of bankruptcy because when somebody files for bankruptcy, there's always somebody on the other side who's getting screwed over, and you want to know why that should be allowed. Well,
yes.
let me explain to you why that's allowed. It's allowed because there's really different types of debt. Right? Like we can agree that a credit card bill is not the same as a tax bill, right? And paying child support isn't the same as paying a payday loan from the corner strip mall place, right? Can we agree that there's different types of debt?
You mentioned two of them. First of all, watch this, Dave. I am going to impress this woman, and you're about to see it happen. First of all, you can't declare bankruptcy on if you owe taxes, right? I mean, you can't. You can renegotiate them. I hear all these ads on our radio station, but you can't walk away from and say, "I'm declaring bankruptcy. I'm not going to pay my federal taxes and what have you."
Well, actually, you can do that. You can file bankruptcy on taxes in certain circumstances. And it just goes to show that there's a lot of things I think out there that a lot of people don't realize and don't really understand. But let's get back to your question, because, what you're hearkening on is the basic, what you consider to be unfairness of bankruptcy. But,
yes.
When we first came on, Dave started talking about, he's very fascinated with the fact that consumer lenders can charge up to 500%.
That's ridiculous.
And the reality, that is what he thinks. The reality is there's no limit on consumer interest in the United States for consumers, for regular average consumers. So the problem here is that there are different types of debt. Taxes, child support, alimony, student loans, those are going to be in a very high priority category. Yes, we can get rid of them in some circumstances, but usually no, because they carry a higher weight. The next type of debt, though, is something called secured debt, right? So we've got cars, we've got houses, they have car loans, and they have mortgages, right? So
where we can take your car or we can take your house.
Yeah. So we can agree that those lenders, a lender who lends money for a car has some safety protection in their back pocket, right? With the fact that they have security. It's called a secured loan, right?
Adrian, I am 100% with you. If you stop paying on your car, we should go get your car. If you stop paying on your house, we should go get your house.
Absolutely.
I'm in total agreement with you.
Absolutely. Now, if you are Capital One credit card and you decide to lend me $3,000 because you sent me a flyer in the mail and you just want to see who bites, the question becomes, how risky is it for you to just give $3,000 to a stranger that you sent a flyer to, that you're not getting some security from them in return, right? So you've chosen to lend $3,000 to somebody that may or may not be able to pay it back. And at every turn, it is the lender who controls most of the situation. And the reason that you can lend $3,000 and become a very wealthy person lending $3,000 left and right is because there are no federal or state laws that limit how much interest you can charge me. I have no protection from you. You had the opportunity to take a security interest in something from me, and you chose not to. And you got to understand, most of the businesses that are out here doing it aren't you. They aren't a guy lending $3,000 to a friend or somebody they know. These are predatory lenders.
Now, wait a minute, Adrian.
Oh,
Adrian, hang on a second here. Just drop the brakes. Now,
I did not know I was going to defend the entire system here. Thank you, Dave, for this invitation.
Listen, when you come on this program, you got to have your boots tied.
Hey,
don't worry, her boots are all tied up.
My boots are all tied up, my friend.
She's going to bat you down, Ron.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Let me tell you, Adrian. No one forces somebody to go into one of these payday loan places. You walk in on your own. On your own. You walk in that door. No, hang on a minute. Hang on. I'm
okay.
talking
It's
to
okay.
Adrian. Be quiet, Dave. No one forces you to go in there to get to take a loan that way. And furthermore, listen, if you want to send me borrow $3,000 and here's the interest rate. No one's forcing me to do that. I can decide not to do that because, listen, Adrian, I have a credit card. I go use it. And can I tell you a secret? When the bill comes, I pay it off and I never pay the interest on it. I get the points. I never pay the interest because that's my debt. I owe them that money.
Are you going to
See,
let
I'm
me
a man of
respond to
honor
this?
and integrity,
Yeah.
Adrian.
I hear you.
Yes.
I'm an honorable person. It suggests that anybody who's filing bankruptcy is not honorable. But let's take a moment here and let's talk about the actual reasons why people file for bankruptcy. Let me give you the the 7 or 8 most common reasons why somebody files for bankruptcy. All
Medical
right?
bills.
Number 1 is death of a spouse. Number 2 is major medical event. All right. Medical bills are in the same category. Bankruptcy is for medical bills. That is the category of bill that is in here. So we have a death of a spouse. We have medical bills. We have loss of a job or demotion, right? Let's think of COVID here. You also have disability. You have mental health issues. You have substance abuse. You have grandparents who are now taking care of grandchildren because their children are either inpatient somewhere or they've skipped out. You have women who are raising children whose spouses have left them holding the bag and they don't have any child support. You are making an assumption that every single person who files for bankruptcy is doing so because they walked into a Kohl's and bought clothes that they couldn't afford because they were just having a great day. That is not the reality.
Exactly.
People are not in debt because of overspending. Overspending is one component, but it is usually in combination with medical problems, a loss of a job. You lose your job, you go to why do you think there are payday loan places on the corners of every corner these days? It's because they're predatory and they're taking advantage of people who are in desperate situation. And we live in a country that does not provide safe access to health care. And therefore bankruptcy has to exist in every form.
All right, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
No. So let's say you have medical bills, and that's the number one cause of bankruptcy.
No, death
But
of a
if you owe a
spouse is
medical
the number
bill-
one cause.
Okay, that's the second one. But if you owe a medical bill, there's a doctor on the other end that needs paid, and he's got a staff that needs paid. There's a hospital that has nurses that they have to pay. None of these people, the nurses, the lab people, the janitors, the emergency room.
Are you
none of them
suggesting
show
that
up for
somebody is
free.
not entitled to health care because they can't afford it? Is that what you're suggesting? Because it sounds like that's what you're saying.
Okay, I'm going to answer your question. Boy, this girl is good, folks. I'm going to answer this question. Watch out there. Sit down, Beatrice.
I am sitting
this
down.
Is gonna be a slam
You're
dunk.
gonna get.
All right,
You're
this
gonna
is a
get your
slam
lunch.
dunk.
You're
Okay.
gonna get your lunch
Here's
served
what
to you.
Okay, Adrian. Here's what I'm suggesting to you.
Yes.
And I bet you live this way. When I was a child, medical care was provided to me because my father had a job that had health care benefits.
Mm-hmm.
When I became an adult, it was my responsibility. It was my responsibility to either get a job that had health care benefits or go buy health care benefits. It's called part of being an adult is having health care coverage. That's your responsibility. I do not think it's a right. It is a responsibility for you to have health care coverage, and that is what your duty is. And by the way, we also have Medicare for the elderly and Medicaid for the poor. So there's a lot of safety nets.
We don't
there,
have Medicaid
but I believe it's your
necessarily for
personal
the poor.
responsibility.
But I'm listening. I'm listening.
But we got.
Keep going.
But
keep
just
going.
like you, and I bet you lived your life this way. Hey, it's your responsibility now. You're an adult to get health care insurance. All I'm saying is from, Dave, a wife that's a registered nurse, plenty of people come into the emergency room, and let me tell you, they don't pay the deductible or they don't pay anything. It's hard for the hospital to stay in business. You see them in a lot of communities. They simply close.
What do you expect? So
Well,
what?
Let
Go ahead.
me
Go ahead.
respond very briefly
Go ahead.
because of course I was
This
raised.
is,
Of course
Adrian,
I was
you're a better
raised
guest
to
than a
be.
Supreme Court judge.
I've met Michael Donnelly.
Frank,
I
I never want
know
him
he
on the
did.
program again. I want you on, Adrian.
Well, a couple things I would like to say is number one, of course, I was raised with responsibility. I'm a responsible individual, and I believe everybody has a responsibility to take care of themselves. But number one, we are the only Western country. We're the only first world country that believes that it is your personal responsibility to go poor while buying healthcare. And I want to point out to you that I am private. I pay for my health insurance outside. I work for a firm. I have a firm. It's so expensive that I have to pay it straight away. And for me and my two children, not my husband who's on Medicare because he's retired, my children and I pay $2,014 per month. That's after taxes. So let's think about how much money I have to earn. How much money do I have to earn? I have to earn $36,000 just to pay my health insurance because I got to pay taxes on it. And oh, by the way, I still have a $6,000 deductible. So for me, the first $42,000 I earn is going towards my health care. So I'm sorry if I'm not feeling too terribly sorry for hospitals when they are charging me $462 for a bag of saline. You're not making that argument to me. I was injured. I was vacationing in Greece 10 years ago. I slipped and I twisted my knee. I tore my ACL and the MRI was $114. And I went home with a brace and I went home with medications that my own doctor wanted to prescribe to me when I got home. And the brace that I got in the pharmacy in Greece was the one my doctor would have prescribed to me if I had been here, but my health insurance would not have paid for it. So I'm not going to argue about healthcare with, the state of healthcare in America. What I'm going to tell you is that who has $40,000 off the top of their entire line item income to be able to pay for health insurance? And oh, by the way, what would we be doing with that money if we weren't paying ungodly exorbitant prices for basic healthcare that clearly can be done cheaper in other countries? That's the question I have when we talk about that. I don't think they need to charge $900 for a needle. And I've been to hospitals recently. My husband was in one. I know everything's overpriced because that is the way this economy is built. We have built an economy that requires people to borrow against credit cards. We have built an economy that encourages people to put their medical treatment on their credit cards. A lot of people go to strip mall loan joints to get loans for medical treatment or to pay for things for their children. So I disagree with you. I believe that healthcare is an inalienable right. I think other countries recognize that. I think we're the only one that doesn't. But if we're going to have a country where you're going to have to go broke just trying to stay alive, then we're going to have bankruptcy laws. So that's why we have bankruptcy laws.
There you go,
I don't have
Ron.
a problem with it.
Push back right away.
Let me tell Adrian a little something. I got a good friend who's and his woman is Canadian. And she left Canada and came across the border because of the lousy medical care.
That's not
and
true.
Came to the United States of America. No,
that
this
was
is
30 years ago. That's 30 years ago.
No,
I don't believe it. I'm telling you, I don't believe it.
I'm telling you, it's happening.
My
right
office
Well,
manager
can
is
we
from
agree,
Canada,
Ron?
and she came from Canada, and I will get her on. We will have her as a guest next time, and she will
Ron,
tell us
can
all
we agree
about
on this?
the differences between Canadian
Should you
healthcare.
have to go broke paying if you get sick? Should that be something that
You
should
get
break?
leukemia. Should you have to file? Should you have to go broke? Should you have to never, ever be able to own a house, start a business, send your kids to college? If you get leukemia, is it okay for you to never be able to do anything again for you or your family that requires money? If that's okay with you, then you're okay with it. And that's okay. You're allowed. It's America.
I believe it is my responsibility to determine. I've got the best medical care in the world right here in the United States.
Through your employer.
No, you
the
don't.
Cleveland Clinic. No, I got the best medical care in the world.
Through your employer.
You're very privileged.
Through
You
my
understand
employer,
you're
right?
Through
very
your employer.
privileged.
There's a lot of people.
I'm an employer. I provide insurance.
Yeah, I'm an employer. I provide
really crappy
insurance.
Wait a
insurance.
minute.
There's only
But-
so much
but-
I can
but
do for my
Adrian,
employees, you know?
Watch this, Dave. Watch this, Dave. I'm going to get her now. I got her now on the
Oh.
ropes. Adrian, that's what you chose. You can go get a job like the rest of us and have health care benefits. You chose to be
Well,
that employer.
I
that.
wasn't. See, that's ridiculous. Is to suggest that you have to spend your entire life, the entire means of your life from the morning to night. Let me ask you something. I'm gonna ask you a question. Have you ever been to
All right.
Have you ever been to Disney World?
Yes, I have been.
Yeah. Do you like?
Get closer to the mic, Adrian. Closer to the mic, please.
Okay. Hang on a second.
Where'd the mic go?
Where did my mic? That's
Well, that's the
it
reason
fell
why.
on the ground. That's why it
Oh,
was.
All right.
Hey, Dave,
What?
I got her so rattled now she lost.
You don't have her rattled. She knows what
Okay.
she's doing.
Okay.
This ain't her first rodeo. This
Okay.
ain't her first
I feel
rodeo.
really good about myself. I feel really good now.
So you've been to Disney World, right?
Yes.
How
yes,
are you?
yes.
How are you? Are you a ketchup fan? Do you like ketchup? Do you like ketchup on your fries? Ketchup on your hot dogs?
I am a fan of ketchup. Yes.
Okay.
I'm
Ever-
no, not on Adrian. I'm a mustard guy on a hot dog. Just to make that
That's
clear, no
fair. Me
ketchup.
too. I'm a mustard person on a hot dog, but I do like ketchup. Let me ask you this: what about cars? Have you ever driven one?
Yes, I actually
Yes,
am one.
yes,
I'm not trying to
yes.
impress you, Adrian. I have a car.
I am impressed though. Well, here's what I want you to hear, and this is really important. Walt Disney, H.J. Heinz, and Henry Ford all filed bankruptcy. And I think it's important to say that because bankruptcy exists in America, not so that you and I can argue about it, but because Americans are inherently risk takers. We couldn't get anybody to go west and take the covered wagons and settle these lands and do the crazy stuff. We couldn't be entrepreneurs and we couldn't be capitalists if we didn't take risks. And America has bankruptcy laws to encourage everybody to take risks. We wouldn't be who we are without that ability.
Surely, Ron.
So what you're saying is we should just lock into a job forever.
Surely, Ron, you're not criticizing someone that took advantage of the bankruptcy laws. Tell me you're not
I'm
criticizing.
sure he's not going to have a problem with anybody who took advantage of the bankruptcy laws in the business
You know
world.
what?
You see how easy it is to
You
pass it
can't
off as a
possibly
business?
have a problem with someone that takes advantage of our bankruptcy
I
law.
gotta take a.
We're gonna take a break.
What a firecracker! This is so much better than that
Firecracker.
Supreme Court judge. I'll be right back.
Our iHeartRadio Music Festival, presented by Capital One.
Streaming live only on Hulu.
On one stage.
Capital One cardholders can score their tickets first now before anyone else. Only available while pre-sale tickets last or until tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Added
Yeah,
Capital
because
One
you know
access
what?
to your pre-sale purchase to attend an exclusive pre-concert event with a performance from New Kids on the Block. Only available during the cardholder pre-sale.
Pre-sale tickets are limited. So visit iHeartRadio.com/Capital One to buy.
The Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church in Farrell invites you to their Super Summer Food Festival Saturday, June 15th from 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. Corner of Washington Street in Beechwood. You'll experience the aroma of mouth-watering Greek delicacies.
DAVID, BETRAS on TikTok, D Beatrice on Instagram, Beatrice Cup on Facebook, Beatrice Cup on Instagram, on YouTube. We have YouTube. We got it all going here. We're live. We're live right now. I've been doing podcasts before podcasts were a thing.
June 15th from 11 a.m.
Yeah,
till
34
4 p.m.
years I've been
Corner
doing this.
Washington
34
Street
years
in
I've been doing
Beechwood.
this.
You'll experience the aroma of mouth-watering Greek delicacies.
I've been doing this show
all the
longer
delicious Greek
than
food
you've been
and
a lawyer.
legendary Greek
You've been doing
pastries
it longer
available
than
for
I've
dine-in
been
at
I
the church
started-
hall or takeout. That's
Okay,
Saturday,
here.
June
Right
15th,
here.
Farrell,
All right, you happy
Pennsylvania. It's the Annunciation
I'm
Greek
telling you,
Orthodox
I
Church
started doing
Super
this
Summer
show
Food Festival.
when I was 30 years
Hoppa!
old. I'm 34. I'm 64 now. I've been doing 34 years. Every Thursday at 5 o'clock.
And look, the world is catching up with you because
Yeah.
now they call it podcasting.
Now they call it podcasting, but I was podcasting before podcasts were a thing. And I'm sorry the people on TikTok can't hear what the host is saying,
Ugh.
but he's giving Adrian a really hard time about bankruptcy. Let me tell you something. More businesses file bankruptcy, right,
Oh yeah.
than individuals.
Oh yeah.
So it's a chapter 11 if a business files. And look, we want that. We want in a capitalistic society, we want people to take risks. And a lot of businesses fail. And then a lot of businesses do amazingly well. There was a time when Jeff Bezos was on the ropes.
Yeah.
There was a time when Elon Musk was on the ropes. These are not uncommon things for entrepreneurs to take risks and then file bankruptcy and come back. Many of you are Donald Trump fans. He's taken advantage of the bankruptcy code more than anyone I know. So it's something that's there, not just for individuals, but for corporations and businesses, and it gives people a fresh start. And Adrian will tell you that when you file bankruptcy, your credit rating goes up, right?
Yeah,
I learned that.
for most people who've fallen behind, whose credit is starting to go in the drink, your credit will go up when you file bankruptcy.
I didn't know that.
If you start really high, it's going to go down a bit, but then it goes back up.
Right.
I mean, it's like a haircut. You cut it, it grows back.
There
It
you
doesn't
go.
take forever.
There
It
you
takes
go.
about 9 months to a year to get back to 720 if you're working at it.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with
It's going to
that.
take you longer than a year to get out of debt.
And chapter 13 is a reorganization for individuals. Chapter 7, I've learned from your TikTok, is a complete liquidation.
Yep.
Chapter 11 is for businesses,
Yep.
reorganization. And if a business wants to liquidate, it's also a chapter 7.
Yes, businesses can file.
So
7.
businesses and businesses and individuals can file for complete liquidations. An individual can file a chapter 13 to reorganize their debt, and a corporation can file a chapter 11. And then there's one for farmers. It's a chapter 12. See, I knew there was
Good
an
job.
odd.
Good job.
I
How
knew there-
knows that?
I-
I hardly ever use the 12. I think I've only filed a 12 like 3 times.
I knew there was a 12. See that? For farmers, they have a special bankruptcy, and we should have that for farmers because we want people to farm. Because these big conglomerates are taking over all the farming business.
Yeah, yeah.
The local
This is
farmer has
Tom
been
Pro
driven
Bowler
out of
Byron, and
business.
here's what's trending.
I
on the
can
iHeart
remember a
Sports
day
Network.
because I have
Presented by
gray hair and
Staples
she
Stores.
doesn't.
Staples can
But
print
I got
anything
it.
you
It's
need to
just
move your
coloring.
business forward.
I can remember a day when you go to a local drugstore, right?
Now
Now,
at Staples,
there are
save
no
up to
local
$50 on
drugstores.
your
They're all
print
big
purchase.
drugstores.
Offer N76.
I remember a
Visit
day when there was a
staples.com/print for details.
hardware
Boost your
store.
business with
Now you got
Staples, your local print and marketing
DIY
expert.
and Home Depot and all those
Now,
places.
Ron
So
Verb
that's the way of the world now.
on News
And
Radio
so
570 WKBN.
there you go.
All right, it's 5:33, and so this is the
Not
legal
on the
show
same page as
brought
me,
to you
but
by
that's
Beatrice.
All right, we're
okay.
back.
And we go back to our attorneys, Attorney David Beatrice and Adrian, the bankruptcy
Ladylike
and David
lawyer
Wilson.
Hines. Are we going to take any calls, Ron, or you just want to talk to us?
Yes, we got.
Let's. I bet we got a
call.
battery full of calls. Let's take them. Let's go.
I think I got her on the ropes too, Dave.
You
Can
do
sense
not.
that?
You do not. You do not.
Okay, I'm just.
You're not going to criticize
Okay.
anyone for filing bankruptcy. You of all people, Ron. Let's move on. Go ahead.
What?
I'm not
Okay,
going to
Adrian,
let
here's
anybody. I'm not
hypothetical
going to
then.
let anybody who call. I'm not going to let
Adrian.
anybody who calls in to be criticized. Go ahead.
All right, Adrian. Here's a hypothetical, and then I'm going to go to calls. Let's say you have a very expensive boat that you have up on Put-in Bay, just as an example, and you have a major repair that's done, and it costs you thousands of dollars, and you don't have the money, and you declared bankruptcy. The mechanic doesn't get his money, and let's say you would be a lawyer. Would that be justified? I'm just kidding.
Well, let me tell you something.
Ron, I want you to know you've not asked about my broken toe. It's healing, and I bought a new dinghy. I'm still suing the company over the dinghy. I don't want to talk about my
Yes.
dinghy anymore. Let's take some calls. Let's see
I've
what
been
people have
on
to
that
say.
boat. I'm going to do whatever I can to help Dave Beatrice keep that boat. Don't you worry.
Oh, my. Okay, there you go. Let's take some calls. All right, first caller. Legal Show brought to you by Beatrice Cop. You're on the air. Hello there.
Is that me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir. What's
sir.
your question?
How you doing? Yes, I have a question about this train derailment settlement in East
Go ahead.
Palestine. I received the paperwork on it. Is this something you think one should fill out and apply for it, or let it ride, or
No.
what's your opinion on that?
My opinion on it is they overshot everything. So we would rather overshoot who should get the train derailment settlement as opposed to undershoot it. Okay. Now they're using census data and other data. It's not precise, but if you got it, they must think that you're in the class. So you should.
I'm in the miles.
He's within the 20-mile range.
All
I
right.
think.
So if
Well,
you.
from point to point, I'm 8.76 miles away.
Okay, so people that are 10 miles or less are generally going to get more than people that are 10 miles or more. If you had any specialized medical bills or medical injuries, you could apply. They're going to have a scoring system. There's going to be a town hall June 25th in the evening at the East Palestine high school, I'm going to be there. Brian Kopp's going to be there. But if you have a lawyer, I'm telling everyone, if you have a lawyer, you should go to your lawyer and have the lawyer help you fill out the paperwork, because that $600 million is not clawed back. So there'll be a first round of payouts. And then if they don't deplete all the money, they're going to go back and calculate it until that money's depleted. Now, there's no medical monitoring in place. So if you release them, you release them. But you only have about a half a year now, or about 8 months to sue them. So if you don't have any catastrophic injuries, you don't have any property damage, you were just within that thing, you're going to get some money. The closer you are to the train derailment, the more money you're going to get as a basic rule.
All right. So David, just to clarify, he can get some money, potentially get some money.
That's correct.
When's that meeting? So caller,
June 25th at East Palestine High School.
What time?
I want to say it's at 6 or 7.
All right. Go to that meeting.
And that has been on the news. And back to your two statements. No, I do not have medical issues. I do fall in to the range, and that'd be it. I had no property damage or medical issues.
Well, don't say no property damage, because your home is devalued because you were 8 point whatever miles from the train derailment. So anyone buying your home is going to know there was a major toxic spill. So certainly if you own property within 10 miles, it had some devaluation. We could agree on that, right?
June 25th.
Agreed on.
Okay.
Go to Dave's. Go to the meeting.
Go to the meeting or hire a lawyer. Okay, thank you. All right, Ron.
David, so for all of those folks, just if they were within that 20-mile range and they didn't have any medical problems or anything, let's say maybe they're renters or something like that, should they come to that meeting and still fill the paperwork out that they potentially can get something?
Absolutely. Everyone's entitled to something. There was trespass, nuisance, property damage, medical bills. There's $600 million pot there, and Norfolk Southern cannot claw that money back. So that money's going to stay there until it's depleted. Now, unfortunately, because of the modeling, we didn't get a medical monitor in place because the experts could not prove by the evidence required in federal court that there's going to be long-term effects. But if you think you're going to have long-term effects, then you don't have to opt into the class. You have to opt out of the class. But then you got to bring your lawsuit within 2 years or you're barred.
All right. So June 25th is we'll go over that again. All right. Next call. Yeah, let's just hope, Dave. Watch this, Dave. Watch. I'm going to get under skin. Let's watch this, Dave. Let's just hope Norfolk Southern doesn't declare bankruptcy.
I doubt a company with a $36 billion market cap is going to.
I had to say it, though.
I know you had to say it. You know, when businesses do it, it's okay. But when individuals do it, they're no good.
I know. I just have to say it. You're on the air. Hello. Next call, line 2, for our attorneys. Hello there.
Hello.
Back on hold. They go. Come back to your phone later. Line 3, you're on the air with our attorneys. Hello there.
Is that me?
Yeah.
What's your question?
Okay. I have questions also about that train derailment, but we'll save that for another day. Because right now you have a bankruptcy attorney on.
Yeah.
I have a question about that.
Go right ahead.
I consider it the ultimate question that nobody seems to be able to answer. Back in the Depression days, you always heard people talk about, well, it took a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. Okay?
Okay.
Here's my question. If you have cash saved up,
yes,
and you have payments, let's say a mortgage payment, we'll use that, and your mortgage payment is $1,000 a month.
All right. Get to the question, because you're getting on our nerves.
And our country goes bankrupt, because to me, that's inevitable if we keep going the way we're going. And will your cash dollars, let's say your payment's $1,000, so you pay them in cash, and you give them $1,000 worth of payment. Will that still be the same?
So I think he's asking a larger question. The larger question is, can the United States withstand the national debt that we have? And we have to address that. I think, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, this crushing 30 whatever trillion dollars in debt, we have to address it at some point. I agree with you, caller. But how we address it, that's the fight. Okay.
Well, and here's what I would like to say. I would go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I would say that I don't know if the government will if the government or America will go bankrupt, but I think it's really important to recognize that here we sit in a country that has this type of debt, and it feels a little disingenuous to look at a single mom who is a waitress at Bob Evans trying to provide for her child, and to look at her and say that you're such a, you chose to walk in there and put those pants, that food for your children on a credit card. It feels a little difficult to put that kind of harsh light on individuals when our entire nation is riding on the rails of debt. It's who we are. It's obviously who we are. And our country encourages it. That doesn't mean it's right. We could go back to putting usury laws in place. Usury laws were put in place to curtail organized crime. Remember loan sharking? Well, we had those laws in place to prevent loan sharking. You couldn't charge outrageous interest because it was predatory and dangerous and criminal. But what happened is when the organized crime kind of went to the wayside, who took their places? Corporations did. We are all pawns in the corporate game. And to have anybody defend the corporations as if we should be crying about them as we're falling asleep at night, wondering how they're going to get paid. We got to take care of the individuals in this country. We got to take care of the people who need to get to work and need to eat and need to have childcare and need to have health care and need to be alive.
All right.
We can't be the greatest country in the world if our people are not educated, fed, and healthy, and we got to prioritize that. That's what I think.
Now from my text screen from our listeners, the following text message. Does this woman believe in personal responsibility?
Absolutely, I believe in personal responsibility. I'm a very responsible individual. But let me tell you about the person that I filed bankruptcy for last week. Okay, last week I filed bankruptcy for a widow, and her house was being foreclosed. She had a home. She did not have a lot of understanding. She had never worked. She'd stayed home and taken care of the children, and she did not have the tools in place. Nobody had put the tools in place to help her. And when her husband passed away, she didn't have anything. She didn't have tools. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Do we just discard people if they don't have the money to play in your game? We have human beings. Okay, well, if you want to discard people because they don't have money to play, we're talking about living. We're talking about life.
You can't have that attitude and then complain about the homeless rate.
Well, wait a minute. As I understood the story, she was unable to pay the mortgage on the house. Was I following it correctly?
She didn't have money for anything because she didn't have money for anything. Let's take the girl that was living in the homeless. Let's take the girl living in the homeless shelter 4 weeks ago with a little girl who, at the age of 18, on her 3 days after her 18th birthday, she was driving her parents' car and it was in a fender bender. $3,000 worth of damage. $3,000. That's it, right? It's not nobody's life is stopping over this, but hers did because her parents had the insurance had lapsed on the car that her parents owned, and she didn't know. She was 3 days past her 18th birthday, and when she was in that accident, because she didn't have insurance, the person that she hit, their insurance company paid the $3,000, then sued her. She didn't have it. They got a judgment against her, and then they took that judgment and they froze her driver's license. And at the age of 21, she was living in a homeless shelter with a baby and couldn't get to work. And we filed bankruptcy to get rid of $7,000 of accrued debt, which completely changed her life. She's now a functioning member of society. She can now take care of her child. She can now buy a place to live. She can now afford those things. She had to get through the debt in order to do that. And that's what bankruptcy is for. You can complain all you want, but it doesn't matter what political spectrum you are in, because Republicans, Democrats, Green Party, Libertarians, everybody needs it. I file bankruptcy for every single person on the political spectrum. I have filed bankruptcy for surgeons. I have filed bankruptcy for people in homeless shelters. I have filed bankruptcy for politicians. I filed bankruptcy for a husband and wife about 3 months ago. And you know what their problem? You know what they did? They lent their car to their mother-in-law to drive to the doctor. Mother-in-law was in a car accident. $60,000 worth of damage to both cars. It wasn't pretty, but turns out mother-in-law had let her driver's license lapse about 2 weeks earlier. And did you know that if you're in a car accident and your driver's license is not, and your birthday was last week and you hadn't gotten around to renewing your license, that your life can be over and they can take your house? I mean, things like this happen every
Ron,
single
it's
day.
just-
Every single
But those
day.
are the rules, David.
Okay.
But
Those
Ron,
are the rules.
but
You're gonna
Ron,
lose
but
your
wait-
house
wait a minute.
because
Personal
you.
responsibility.
Okay,
It's
so
not
it's
my
personal-
responsibility
All right.
to renew my license.
Okay.
Have
So
insurance.
it's okay for corporations to take
Yeah.
advantage of the bankruptcy code.
It's okay.
But it's bad for
Corporations
individuals.
to
Is that what you're
close,
saying?
To shut down, to close the gift
I'm
cards
saying
that they
that
had
there's
for
a
all
big-
the people. It's okay for them to bypass safety measures. It's okay to just get rid of usury laws.
Ron,
It's totally okay
Ron,
to charge
I
people
know
not
where
being
you
Why do we
fall.
have rules, though? Why do we have
Wait a minute,
rules?
wait a minute, Ron. I know where you fall on the political spectrum. Okay, you can't possibly have these cognitive dissonance with saying anyone that files bankruptcy is irresponsible and we should never put them in charge of anyone. Is that what you're saying to me?
Remember
I
Walt
see-
Disney? Remember Walt Disney?
You're not
Remember
saying
these
that to me,
people.
Ron. You're
Life
not
has
saying that to
go
me.
on. Life
If
has
we
to go
want
on.
entrepreneurs, we got to give them an off ramp if they take the wrong risk.
Yeah.
There are a lot.
I'm not going to defend.
okay,
I'm not going to
forget-
defend bankruptcy.
I'm
I'm just
I am
going to.
just-
I'm just going to be comfortable in the fact that I help a lot of people, and I know that there are a lot of people listening who could use the help of somebody like me, notwithstanding the opinion of people who don't think that it's okay. You're entitled to that opinion, but the reality of the American economic system is that most people, individuals, are being tremendously exploited and taken advantage of because we don't understand all the rules. You don't understand them. I don't understand them. I know
Well,
Dave
I
doesn't
can-
understand them.
But let me ask you this, and I want to take more calls. I think I do understand them. I go to work. I live within my means.
That's
I
very-
pay my bills when they come
It's
in.
very privileged
I have,
of you.
no,
It really
it's not
is a privileged
I have
statement.
car insurance. I renew my license
Yeah.
plate. I renew my driver's
You
license.
sound like you're male too. I mean, I want to start
Well,
there.
I
wanna
am
point-
100% male.
I want to point
I
out that
am-
it's very easy to suggest that somebody should just take responsibility for their life.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you have never been, if you've never been the child, of divorced parent, you weren't the child of a single parent. You didn't have the ability to go to the doctor when you needed. I mean, there's a reality here that a lot of people think that they,
So you think I'm privileged?
No, she didn't say that, Ron.
I said that your comment is privilege. What I think you're having trouble understanding what it's like to be in the shoes of somebody who's very different from you. And you can say personal responsibility every day, but I have a lot of people who have a tremendous amount of responsibility and they are overwhelmed because it's one thing to be responsible and have a child and need to feed them. It's another thing when COVID has decimated your job and you don't have the ability to move forward. You cannot assume that everybody's life is like yours. And there are a lot of very awful things that happen to people that you probably have never even thought about.
Ron, anyone,
Yeah.
anyone is one or two decisions away
No question.
from bankruptcy.
I can tell
Everyone.
you that couple that lent their car to their mother-in-law, they were you. They were you. They were the
That's
people.
why I don't lend my
who-
car out, though.
You know.
Oh yeah,
okay.
except when Lisa
So-
comes home and
so-
says, "Hey."
So does.
Well,
Yeah.
that's my wife. And guess what? I mean, we have insurance. I mean, look, all I'm trying to say to
What
people-
happens
I
if
mean,
You don't
you
have
get-
everything.
wait a minute, hold on a
You don't
second,
have
Ron.
everything.
Hold
You
on a
don't
second.
you have
How
not
much
fully
insurance?
protected
Hold on.
yourself
Let me
from
let me
every
let me
single
bust
thing
him
in the
here.
world.
How much insurance do you have? Automobile insurance.
I have high limits. On
Tell me
this
what it
because,
is. Tell me
you
what
wanna
it
know
is.
Because I listen to the legal show, and so I have very high limits that
I have a
are-
policy of I have $1 million umbrella, and that's all I could buy. But I'm telling you, if I blow a stop sign and crash through and injure a surgeon, that $1 million will go
It's not
like
enough.
this.
Yeah.
Okay? And then what? They're going to come after me individually? And as much assets as I have, they could rip through them. You injure a big earner, you can go through $8, $9, $10 million that fast. And I'm as responsible as they come, Ron. That's what I say. Everyone is 1 or 2 decisions away from being someone that has to use the bankruptcy
No one
laws.
ever expects to be sitting and talking to me. And I think that's the thing that most people understand. Most of the people who I talk to are just like Ron.
Yeah.
A year ago, they would have been arguing with me, but the reality of life is very overwhelming. And I gotta say, I do not think that you are privileged. I think that you have that you make an assumption that everybody else is in the same exact position as you, and that's really not true. And the problem with poverty too, we have to understand, is that poverty is different than just having enough but not having all of that you want. It's very different, because when you don't have enough money just to simply buy food, pay insurance, pay for rent, then extra money, you don't have anywhere to stop and take from. There's nowhere else to get the money. There's only so many hours a day you can work. If you have children, you can't get 3 jobs. You have to care for children. So there comes a point in time when somebody who's got a high school education, who is working a physical job, those people can only do so much.
Ron, do
And
you know that
a setback royally screws them? Now, bankruptcy allows them to move through it, and then maybe they go to school. Maybe they start a business so they can support themselves. The point of bankruptcy is to take you from a time that's very difficult that you didn't expect to be in, whether it's because of the unexpected death of a spouse, whether it's because you've lost a job. Lordstown, I mean, my God, you got right down the street, for God's sakes. You had a president promising these people to keep their houses. I mean, that was crazy, because a lot of them had to file for bankruptcy. Why? Because they trusted. I mean, we trust the system. We trust our jobs. And guess what? Our jobs are not always there.
Ron,
And
can
we
I
are
tell
not
you?
always healthy.
Can I tell you 80% of Americans do not have $400 in savings?
That is absolutely correct.
Did you know that, Ron?
Yeah, I do know that,
Yeah.
and I think and I would say to all of them, let's look at. Listen, I'm not here to argue with the woman. The reality is, this is about effort. And, it would have been easy for me to say, I want to drop out of high school, but my parents didn't allow it. It would have been easy for me to say, I'm
You're
not going to go
lucky.
to
You're
college
lucky you
and
had parents.
graduate.
You're lucky you had parents
Okay,
who
but the
encouraged you and
reality
didn't let
is,
you do that. How many people don't
I
even have parents at home?
I put in the effort, so I have more than $400 in the bank, because it's thinking and it's effort and it's personal responsibility. It's how my parents raised me.
And
It's how most people in this audience were raised.
I also think
That's
that
it.
you were raised with compassion and understanding empathy. And that is what I do. I deal in the compassion and the empathy world, because I recognize that all good intentions everyone has, they don't always go well. Look at divorce. How many people do you think get married thinking that they're going to get divorced? It's awful. I don't think it's great. But we have divorce laws, don't we? We allow people to disengage from people that they've married, because what's the alternative? I mean, to
Hey,
suggest
Adrian.
that everybody's going to do
Do we have any
everything
calls,
correctly-
Ron?
Yeah.
You're not
we
going to
have-
Sorry
catch
about
her.
that.
You're not
Sorry.
going to catch her, Ron. You're not going to catch her.
Okay.
No, Adrian, I'm going to tell you, my father gave me this key advice. The quickest way to financial ruin is divorce.
That
So
is
don't-
That's
How
true.
many guys have you represented that gone through divorce? A
Listen,
lot of people. No, Ron, this is true. A lot of people that go through divorce
Yeah.
wind up in bankruptcy.
well, that's because they're unreasonable. They still want the same lifestyle
Oh,
that
no.
they had while married.
Yeah.
You know?
And I
That's
see
one
this.
of the problems.
And these lawyers, Adrian, are so expensive. Okay.
Oh,
here we go.
really?
Let's
That's
take quick
true.
calls.
That's
Go
true.
ahead, Ron.
That's true.
Okay, go, caller. You're on the air. Question for Dave.
Or Adrian.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead,
Hello?
caller. What's your question? Yes.
Am I on?
Yes. What is your comment, please?
Oh, Ron. I apologize. I can't tell. I can't tell. Hey, this is not a question about bankruptcy.
Yes.
But it's a question about one of those, Dave, if you know anything about the 5G or the 4G cell towers.
Yeah.
So one was I'll put up in my backyard. Well, on my backyard about maybe going on 10, 15 years ago. I knew nothing about it, you know, and if I do find out that there is some sort of health issues or anything, do I have any means of
So
going,
causation
against
does
the people who put it up?
so just because you get sick and there happens to be a cell tower doesn't mean the cell tower caused your sickness. It is a hard jump to prove causation. And if you are a plaintiff in a case, you have what's called the burden of proof. You have to prove that that cell tower caused your injuries. And I'm telling you, that's a heavy, heavy load to carry.
Thanks for your call. I want to get as many on as I can. You're on the air. Question for Dave. Go, please.
Or Adrian. Go ahead.
Question. The Klein-Miller Act of 2014. Would you please explain it a bit?
The what?
The Klein-Miller Act of 2014 under Barack Obama.
The Klein-Miller
It's
Act.
about businesses the Klein-Miller Act of 2014.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know
You're
what-
on the air. Question for Dave. Go ahead, please. Line
Is that me?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your question?
Okay. I have a quick question. Sorry. So I was living with a guy for 8 years. I became a stay-at-home mom 2 years into that, so 6 years ago. I left to go to a doctor appointment one day. I came home, and I took care of all the bills. The guy didn't even know how to pay the light bill. I monitored our credit, everything. We shared a car because I traded my family car, and my name wasn't on his bank account, but I was the only one who had access to the bank account because I handled all the finances.
What's your question?
I left to go to a doctor appointment, came home one day. My house was locked, keys were taken. He refused to let me back in, and then filed custody of my child, saying she doesn't have a stable home, a car, or a job, and he won. Now I've got my custody thing taken care of, but we were not.
Oh, we're out of
So for 6
time.
years, I provided
Watch
him
me tomorrow
services.
morning on
Call me next
WFMJ
week.
Today.
Call
Thank you,
Call
Ron.
next week. Thank you, David. Thank you, Adrian.
And I'm Nick Silver.
And our new podcast, Risky Business, is a show about making better decisions. We're both journalists who unite as poker players, and that's the lens we're going to use to approach this entire show.
We're going to be discussing everything from high-stakes poker to personal questions.
Like whether I should call a plumber or fix my shower myself.